Welcome to The Impossible, where we empower others to face the impossible, inspire them to be impossible, and motivate them to do the impossible. It is funny how we can plan our whole life and future, and in just one little instance, those plans can be swept right under the carpet and set before us a challenge so great that conquering it seems impossible. But sometimes that is exactly what we need to help us learn who we are and become far better people than we were before. Because we don't realize how strong we truly are until we are faced with the impossible. Walt Disney once said, "It is kind of fun to do the impossible." But what exactly does one do with that? Well, I wouldn't call myself an expert, but in the past couple months, I have been given a challenge that certainly, at first, seemed impossible. And I would have to say, based on my experience, that one cannot hope to do the impossible until one first becomes impossible. Now, that seems to be somewhat of an ambiguous term. What does it mean to be impossible? Well, it isn't something you can train for. It isn't based in something you can do or have done. It is a mindset. To be impossible, you must refuse to allow any amount of hardship you face to stop you from reaching your goals. You must always keep faith and moving forward. Always finding happiness in your situation, because there is no better remedy in existence than true, genuine happiness. And once you have adopted this mindset, you will be amazed at what you can do. So if there is anything I want you to take away from my words today, let it be this. Learn to find happiness in everything, both good and bad, because it is always there. And in your life, when you are faced with the impossible, become impossible, and you will do the impossible. As Mr. Disney said, it is so much fun. Those words were first written and spoken in March of 2013. It was as I was preparing for my high school graduation, and that was my valedictorian speech, which I gave just 10 days before my leg was amputated, 3 months after having been diagnosed with cancer. And I'll be quite honest with you guys, it's been a very long time since I've read those words, but it puts me in a pretty emotional spot. Not because of the memories of that time period or those events or those hardships that I faced, but what brings joyous tears to my eyes is the fact that that message resonates absolutely with everything we still believe and profess with Impossible Performance today. That speech, I believe, is where Impossible Performance was born. And now, over a decade later, it has grown into the roaring fire that it is today, with the help of my brother and my partner in this business and the co-host of our show, Austin Douglas. And we wanted to open with those words, and we have specific words we're going to close with today. Because today, while it is just another episode, it is a profound milestone for us in sitting down to record episode 100 of this podcast. And to us, it rings true as a stack of undeniable proof that we have done and are continuing to do and will always do exactly what we have said we will do. And it has been one of the greatest honors of my life, and I know it has for Austin as well, to be a part of this journey and to share in this journey with each and every one of you whom we have had the opportunity to come into contact and share in these moments of the impossible. So today, for episode 100 of The Impossible, we wanted to take some time to reflect and share in memories of these most profound moments that have impacted us along this journey. So many of you listening have been a part of those moments. And we cannot thank you enough for being a part of our team, being a part of our mission and our vision for what we are creating and building in the world. But mostly, we hope that this platform and the message within serves as an absolute reminder and a conduit of the effect you can have on others and everyone you interact with, to help them face the impossible challenge in their life, to help them create and build an impossible version of themselves so that they will inevitably do the impossible. And in doing so, it will drive you even greater to do the same in your own life, just as it has driven Austin and I over the past now 2 years since this show's inception. So, with that, welcome to episode 100.
Welcome, everyone.
Bro, I'm not going to lie. I was like struggling to hold it together reading those words. I didn't even read that before starting this episode. Had been, we actually looked it up on Google Documents, and funny enough, the last time I had accessed that file was October 17th, 2018, which would have been either the day of or the day before the Columbus half marathon in back in 2018, which would have been the second time I had run it. So it's just funny to think that likely back then I had pulled those words up to read them before I went out to face yet another impossible challenge. And in a race and in the couple years that really were formative and powerful in allowing me to take a totally different direction in life. But it was really profound for me to read those words and see how, like, that's something we could have written today, you know?
Yeah.
That's how true it is held constant throughout the last over a decade now.
The origin story.
Yeah.
So
it's kind of wild to think about. I remember, I mean, as you know, and anybody who's experienced chemo, you know that chemo brain is not it's not a fairy tale.
No.
It's a very real thing, and you lose a lot of your short-term memory. You lose a lot of your cognitive focus and performance when on those drugs. And so I don't have a lot of memories from that time.
Yeah.
But the ones I do have are very profound and like imprinted on my brain. And one of the memories I do have that's imprinted on my brain is hearing my name called, and I'm on crutches, and I'm crutching up to the podium on the stage, and then I pull my speech out and get it all arranged, and I look up, and there's a crowd. I think there were 1,000 people or so there, and I just remember the stillness and the quiet that you have before you give a presentation. And I remember sitting in that stillness and that quiet and wanting it to kind of extend forever, and then speaking the first words. And it's just crazy to think how even then it almost feels like the person I've built today and the words we speak today, it feels like in a sense that they were kind of traveling through time and space to come through me even at that moment, you know? And it's, whether you buy into those sort of theories or not is really irrelevant, because what it does mean is that it gives me even added purpose for what we speak today.
Yeah.
Because in a way it's almost like I'm speaking to and speaking through myself at that time period as well. You know, it's interesting because I never knew where that message of be impossible came from. I remember it coming to me. I was laying in another memory that I have. I was laying in bed and trying to think of I need some kind of mantra to help guide people and help provide direction and purpose to all of this pain and hardship. And I just remember that one coming to me for no particular reason. It just came to me. And then that speech was formed from that thought. And then a decade later, everything we do now, you know, is still traces back to that one thought. It's like, where did that thought come from? You know,
Which
was it? Yeah.
seems extremely improbable.
Yeah.
to last that long.
Yeah.
And that's why I really like origin story is very much an understatement for the power and the impact that it's had on your life, my life, and now many others' lives.
Yeah.
To, you know, for a speech at a valedictorian, for a graduation ceremony to, like you said, now and in what we're pushing. That's, from the outside looking in, that's extremely powerful.
Mm-hmm.
And something that lay dormant for how many years? So
Yeah, it would have been, because I professed that message very strongly throughout 2013, part of 2014, and then it kind of got locked away for half a decade.
Yeah.
And even longer, honestly, even once I got on a better path, it was more internalized to me. It wasn't really until 2020 that I started kind of bringing it back and bringing it out more. But it hasn't really been until the last 2 years since we went on the marathon journey in 2023 that it's really become a very public, very professed mission and vision.
The powerhouse that
we have
today.
for it. Yeah, yeah. It's kind of funny to think back, you know, it's in that auditorium, we had I think there were roughly 1,000 people there. And I think I remember that because I couldn't wrap my head around speaking to 1,000 people. Like, what is that like? What is that like? Like,
Yeah.
It felt like in the moment, it's like, you can't go higher than this. And now we've got singular episodes that have done more than 1,000 views on just YouTube alone.
Mm-hmm.
And it really shifts perspective for you. And it'll be cool to see when we come back for episode 200 and 300 and episode 1000, you know, what sort of impact will we be able to have on people then? What kind of scale will we be able to reach? But I'm no longer confined to that thought of, you can't go higher than this. And I know you aren't either, because we know we can go so much higher. Mm-hmm. But we wanted to reflect for you guys and for ourselves on some of the most powerful and memorable moments we've had on this journey. And there have been so many, more than we could ever capture all of them on here. We'd be here for 10 hours recording if we were to do that. But I know some of the most powerful ones we wanted to come on and highlight and kind of recapture some of those memories for us and for you guys to, I guess, demonstrate and give thanks and to pay homage to what all of us have the potential to create for ourselves and for others. Mm-hmm. When you tie yourself to a mission and a vision for what you want to create in your world, and your world can be defined by whatever that is. That can be just you and your family. It can be you and your community. It can be you and your nation, or it can literally be you and your entire world. You define what that is for you. But whatever that definition is, you have the potential to create immeasurable impact for them. And it's our goal, always, to help each of you do that in your own way, however that means to you. So we wanted to give some examples of exactly how that's been done since we've started this show, since we've started business and everything else we're chasing and pursuing right now. And then at the end, we have some pretty big and exciting announcements for you guys. Yes. So I guess starting off, what's some of your what's one of your biggest memories?
My biggest memory are our first episodes, man.
Oh yeah.
So first off, since we're doing visuals now, this is the Team Impossible
OG
shirt. This is the OG, like this is the OG shirt.
Yeah.
Not a copy. No. This is the original. This is the original mosaic that I would have been wearing at that point for Team Impossible.
You know, it's so funny because I almost put that same shirt on because I was like, we need to throw back to the OG
right.
shirt.
Well, yeah, exactly.
And then I was like, man, it doesn't match the shorts I'm wearing today, so
that's fair.
I'm going to go with the competition shirt.
Black pants.
But it's good because we kind of give the progression.
Exactly, exactly. And I vividly remember because I was so excited. I wanted to, and I just bear with me here. I wanted to impress you. Because we were just starting off with Impossible Performance and the podcast. We were so ecstatic to get it started. And I remember vividly, I was like, all right, I want to impress Matt. I need a really good area to do it in. And so we go to the AC Hotel downtown Columbus, and I get the King Suite room, which has 2 chairs. And then we get a small little circular nightstand that was like glass and metal. And so it was sturdy. And I'm like, that's perfect for the mic setup. Because when we started, we had these mics in these stands, or mic stands. And so I was so excited getting all of that set up. And that was pretty much my return to really dealing with anything, audio engineering wise. I hadn't recorded a thing in years, and so I hadn't touched my audio interface. I hadn't touched Logic Pro, not working with the mics. And I had told you I came in with so much confidence that I knew that I knew what I was doing. And I promise you that when I first started, I was just like after we recorded it, which we recorded. What was it? We recorded my full-length episode. We recorded a full-length episode for you, but we actually re-recorded that afterwards. And then we recorded a fireside chat.
Yeah.
So we did, in 2 days, like 7.5 hours of recording.
Oh, yeah. 3 episodes.
And so that was a lot of fun, and I was so ecstatic that we got this downtown Columbus hotel, and I'm just like, dude, we we're bougie, we've made it, you know, even though it's the beginning, and and I remember getting to editing the first podcast, and I'm like, I had to watch so many tutorials for Logic Pro 10. I'm like, what am I doing? I had my, at that point, the MacBook that I had was 8 years old. Logic Pro, but it was like two complete generational versions back, because I couldn't update it anymore with the software I was using on the MacBook. And I'm like, oh gosh, this is not going to sound good. This is not going to sound good. I did all of this hype up. I told Matt I knew I was doing, and it's going to sound like garbage, and he's going to rip me a new one. And I was so nervous having you listen to that first episode. And the only thing you came back to me with was the fact that you wanted to re-record your episode. You said nothing about the audio. You were like, dude, it sounded great. And I was just like, oh, so much relief went through my body at that point.
I think you massively overestimate my oral skills.
So it did sound like garbage. I understood. Yeah, I was very nervous. I was very nervous, and I listened to that. I listened to mine, and I listened to the fireside chat. And wow, have we evolved dramatically in our not only our speech, but in our conversational ability, and then the few other podcasts that I listen to here of recent for reflection, throughout the evolution of just like your interviewing skills. Just going through that and listening to it was just what we've done from point A to whatever point this is. Wow. I mean the flow that we're able to find, the questions that you're able to come up with, and the connection that we're able to make for the listener is just, it's profoundly evolved. And I think that's one really great thing to take away from the 100 episodes, but at the same time, I really did have a few emotional moments, especially listening to the fireside chat. Because back then, I mean, we talked so much, just you and I off to the side, and we were like, hey, let's put this into an episode. And we did the fireside chat. I just, hearing that again, I haven't listened to it since probably a couple weeks after we released it. And so hearing that again was just, the coup de grace.
Yeah, it's, well, there's a lot to unpack there. First is, I never knew that you didn't really feel entirely confident and comfortable with your audio engineering.
Well, I knew,
so you just blew your cover because I had no clue.
I knew the equipment. It was when I went to produce it, I was like, oh no.
Yeah. Well, and I think here's the other piece too, is until you opened up the potential of that world for me for much higher level equipment, I was planning on laptop and plug-in lapel mic. So that was my
which
standard of acceptable standard.
It would have worked.
So you could have literally done nothing with the audio and it would have sounded better than that.
Yeah, these mics, they're a little bit,
Yeah. So, but I think it speaks to, you have to be able to have unruly faith in your own potential. That's a message we bring constantly on this show, and that's a perfect example of it.
Because I was so ready to bring it.
Yeah.
But then I got to the laptop and I was like, all right, YouTube.
Yeah. And you put yourself in a position where you had to perform.
Yeah.
And even though it may not have been like the picture of perfection, you still put out quality work that would continue to evolve and grow over time. And that really harkens back to we talk about a lot of Alex Hormozy concepts, but another one he has is just talking about do so much volume that it's completely ridiculous that you wouldn't succeed. And I love that thought because it makes it to where you don't have to do it right. You don't even have to do it good necessarily. You don't even have to focus on any of that. Just do so much volume and try to get better every time that eventually you will succeed just from the sheer fact of mathematical numbers. You've done so many episodes, so many hours of recording with the intention of doing better that you will inevitably create something beautiful in the end.
Overpower the odds against you.
Yeah.
Just by sheer force.
Yeah. And it is funny that because now we both have very...
Excuse me.
Trying to think of the word for it. We have very intentionally designed regimens and protocols for prepping ourselves physically and mentally and spiritually and emotionally for a podcast, with supplements, with meditation, with many different, with nutrition, and it can put us in a very, very specific mindset and state to be able to record these episodes at our highest level. And back then we were just chugging caffeine.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, I remember driving up to Columbus. I was also so stoked. I was also feeling ready to bring it. And I was like, man, I'm ready to speak. I'm ready to go. And I think I got myself so amped up on that 2-hour journey that by the time I got to Columbus, my mind was completely wiped.
Yeah. It's exhausted.
I don't remember even much at all about that very first episode we recorded, but I do remember that we totally scrapped it.
Yeah.
Because it was going to be the first episode, the first thing people would hear of our show. And so I remember we recorded it, we walked away, and I remember I felt like I had a lot of fun with it, but I knew, I kind of had that feeling in my gut. I'm like, man, that was not my best work. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure if we were to go back and listen to it now, we would just laugh at it the entire time.
Oh, yeah, I wonder if I have that recording.
But I knew it was not my best work. So we went out that night, celebrated, got a really good dinner, and then we came back after dinner, and I found getting some food in your body so that your brain actually has nutrients to be able to fuel itself and perform makes a big difference on the recording. So then we recorded the fireside chat, and I do think that was I know it was a fun episode, but I think it was a good episode as well. Yeah. And when you and I recorded that, we felt so much better about it. And then the next morning we get up and we recorded your episode, which would have been, I don't remember the order we released them. So I think yours was episode 3. Okay. Yeah. So we recorded your episode, and we felt really good about that one. And I think we had set release date or launch date for like the week after that recording. And I remember coming to you like the night before, and I was just like, dude, I don't feel good about this first episode. And so I was like, we've got to record it. So we got up at like 4 a.m. on launch day of the podcast, recorded an entirely new episode. Austin got it turned around and edited and produced, and we published it in that same day.
In that day, that morning.
That one, and then I think we had those 2 other episodes that same week come up. Yeah. So it was just, but I remember from the moment we published and launched, we got so much positive feedback, mostly from our friends and family, and we were so thankful for that, but it just came immediately in. And that was so reassuring to what we were doing. But what I love about it is originally, I remember that I had the thought of, because we were doing the marathon that year. It was 2023. We were trying to raise the $26.2 thousand, running a marathon, building a team, all of this stuff. And I just felt like social media was not a great enough platform to be able to capture our message. Like Instagram Shorts back then could only be 90 seconds. Yep. And I just felt like we're not able to get, like, you can't really unpack our message in 90 seconds. You can barely hit highlights in 90 seconds. And so I was struggling with that platform a lot. And I remember thinking, like, you know what, we should just start a podcast once this marathon's done. And at the time I was like, it doesn't have to be something super serious. Like, we don't have to hold ourselves to a schedule. We'll just record whenever we feel like it and just put stuff out, but then at least people have the longer form content. Well, then we just decided, you know what, why would we even I broke my foot is what I think it was. Took me out of training, and we're like, why would we even wait? Let's just do it now, and then we'll already have 6 months of material built up by the time the marathon's over. And it just exploded from there into a true passion of ours, to where now this show is the main platform that we focus on when it comes to Impossible Performance and our message. So you're right, it is so fun to go back and think about those original moments. But even then, there's so many aspects of our message now that resonate in that time back then. Yeah. You know, that unruly faith in your own potential that you had for your ability to produce the episodes. Me, clumsily getting through the first episode and deciding it didn't hold to our true standards.
It was like it was like 3.5 hours.
Oh, it was long. Yeah.
And then you were just like, we need to do it again. And I'm like, all right, dude.
Yep.
All right, man.
I think it was a good move in the end.
Well, absolutely. Because I remember, I think I remember you saying that you had stated, you're like, I left too much in the tank in that first recording. Like, you just, like you said, it was fun. I think it was just because we were in a hotel room goofing off, in front of mics, like giving this a go. And then it was, and I think going through your episode and then going through the fire chat really calmed me down to then help me get into mine. Mm-hmm. And so I think it was just more of like, we went in firing from the hip without really getting to even hold the gun first. Mm-hmm. And like feel the weight of it. Like we were just handed the gun and they were like, fire. And we're like, all right. just started going, And so that's I believe that's where we were at. And so you coming back with that, I don't remember being concerned or anything like that. I was just like, all right, dude, let's fucking
And you were all for it.
Let's do it.
And do you know that feeling that, like, especially when we have the really intense long episodes where you're done and your brain just feels totally like fried, and you feel like you need sleep and nutrition and like everything. That's like what I got about 15 minutes into the episode, that very first one we recorded, because I hadn't eaten that day, or at least I think I'd only had some like of those fatty beef sticks that we were eating back then. I think I'd only had a couple of those. I had not hydrated properly, and I'd like been so amped up the whole drive up to Columbus. So it's like when you start out that way and your brain's in that state, because I think what happens is we work our brains so much harder than we realize on the show and recording these episodes, and what I think a lot of us don't think about is our brain is a massive user of glucose in our bloodstream. I think it's like 40% of the available glucose in our bloodstream gets used by the brain. Don't quote me on that, but I think it's somewhere around there. So the fact that an organ that's relatively so small compared to the size of the rest of your body is using 40% of that fuel, and then you push it into a state of maximal performance. I mean, that's like, trying to go into a max effort squat day without eating anything beforehand, having no fuel, no hydration, no nutrition throughout the session, and expecting yourself to perform optimally.
Abysmal output,
Yeah, we had just not treated the mind as a performance tool yet. And so I think that that episode definitely opened up my eyes to it. And it's ever since then I've known that I have to have some good quality nutrition in my body before we sit down to record. And especially I need some form of good quality carbohydrate that's going to help fuel my brain the whole time. And our process has grown quite extensively since then. But it's funny to think back to those very original episodes. Do you have the pictures there?
Oh, June 24th, 2023. June 24th.
Okay. So very nearly 2 years ago now. And
wow.
We probably recorded it a week or two ahead of that.
Yep.
And, so it's been almost exactly 2 years, but it doesn't feel like that long ago.
No.
But, it's interesting to think how we look back on this episode 2 or 10 years from now, when we think about this tiny little recording studio we've got now compared to where we will be. So it's just proof that you can take an idea, you can take a concept, you can take a passion, and you may not know anything about it on how to execute or how to drive it or really even what to do with it or what your plans are for it. But you can take it and you can start executing on it without knowing the full path of what you're entering on into. And you can start executing, and by executing, you will start learning by default. And from there, it's purely just volume of doing it time and again with strong intentions of trying to grow better at it each time. And that's where we say that unruly faith in your own potential and building that version of yourself that's capable of overcoming that impossible challenge, to where now everything we do is, we put loads of time of research into how to build a better podcast platform. We've brought on consultants to weigh in on our podcast. And those are the people that largely got us set up on with video on YouTube and doing YouTube shorts, and even an enhanced production quality. And actually, just before we started recording, we talked about our next big production move that we're getting ready to do. That will be coming later this summer. I don't have an exact timeline on it yet, but it's going to be another massive revolutionary change for the platform. So it's just cool to see how you can take a passion that has no real clear focus or direction, and you can start it. You don't have to have everything figured out first. I think that's what holds people up so much in life, is they think they have to have all of these boxes checked before they can chase something they really want to do. Yeah. And really, you have to start chasing it first and check the boxes as you go along.
And that's something that I I personally was experiencing, coming out of music school for university, I had a lot of aspirations, and one of them was starting my own YouTube channel, and I was in that exact boat of going, oh, I need to get this, and I need to get that, and I need to do this, and I have to be settled and ready on my throne before I release my passion to the world. And this podcast has made me realize that it most certainly that is not the case at all. So,
Mm-hmm. In fact, it likely will never happen if you wait until the circumstances are perfect.
You'll be waiting forever.
Yeah, because the circumstances will never be perfect.
Never. Yeah, even when you're into it, you'll realize, oh, okay, well, that's definitely not going to happen. That's going to take a very long time. Mm-hmm. I want that, but that it's, oh, wow, okay. Yeah.
And I think even when you get to the highest level, I'd imagine even the greats of the podcasting world, the Joe Rogans, the Andrew Hubermans, people like that, I would imagine they still even have ideas of, like, I want to go here with my show. Like, I don't think anybody who's truly pursuing something worthwhile feels that they've perfected their craft.
Always room for improvement.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm glad you bring up those memories.
Yeah, dude.
Those are ones I had not thought of.
That was my initial one. I wanted to get out there, like, just the path that we've taken and how incredible, like, if you were to put it on a bar graph or like an XY chart of just the improvement that we've made from 1 to 100 is just, like I said, profound. And from 100 and on, it's just gonna exponentially go up.
Yeah,
and I'm so excited for it.
Yeah, I'm very excited for that. And when we first started, those first probably 15 to 20 episodes, we were honored to have a lot of really impactful, powerful guests on our show. Mm-hmm. People who had meant a lot to us. Clayton Workman, the owner of Monsters Bent Barbell, and one that particularly is meaningful to me. And the anniversary of the 1-year anniversary of her passing is actually this weekend. Was Ginger McConnell. And I believe she was episode 10. And I remember when we recorded that episode, she knew she had terminal cancer. She didn't know how much time she had left. She hoped it was a year. And it was very nearly a year after that episode she passed away. Mm-hmm. But I just remember the whole time we were recording that thinking, like, this is immensely important. I think that was the first time I really realized exactly how important what we're doing is, because we did our best and hopefully did a worthy job of being able to capture some of the essence of Ginger's spirit in something that will live on long after her time here and after our time here, and it will give future generations like Lily will be able to listen to that episode someday and learn from it in the ways that I was so blessed to have learned from Ginger. And so I think that's the first time I really felt a true responsibility to what we're doing. And after that episode, I think that was kind of what got the spark of putting a lot more intensity and focus into the show. And then we had, several other good episodes beyond there. Danielle's episode was phenomenal. We didn't even know Danielle back then, No. She was just somebody that we'd kind of seen on social media, knew she trained at the gym. But she was just one of those people that, like so many of our guests, I just kind of was drawn to. And I'm like, I know this person has a powerful story that's going to help so many others in impossible ways. And then she came on and told us her story. And so many of these stories we hear, we don't know much about them before they come on the show. Yeah. And then we heard hers. And I remember she was one of those episodes we walked away from, and I was just shook, like head to toe. Like, how have you built such an immensely strong spirit in the face of everything you've battled through? And now she and her husband, Pete, and their daughters are some of our closest, most cherished friends. And they've been a big part in our lives and our mission and journey. And they've been a big part in Lily's life now. And it's so cool to see those relationships develop.
Yeah.
But then maybe still to this day, I would have to think about it, but maybe still to this day, the episode that was one of the hardest yet most important to me was JD's first episode, the week before the marathon.
Mm-hmm.
And if you guys don't know or haven't heard that episode, don't know his story, I think it was might have been episode 17 was the first one. Episode 19 was maybe the second. But scroll back to that area and you'll see when it was 17. So go back to episode 17 and give that episode a listen. Because if you guys don't know JD's full story, he actually took action to end his own life in October of 2022, unbeknownst to me or Austin or Lauren, and totally unbeknownst. And I didn't even know about it until about 6 months after it happened. And I remember him, but at that point he had, a couple months after that attempt, he started marathon training with me for no real particular reason, it seemed at the time. But I remember that whole winter of 2022 into 2023, we were just running miles and miles and miles together at Civitan Park after dark. And those are some very powerful memories that I have. And then, he tells me 6 months after it happened, around the time of the start of this show. And I remember how powerfully that shook me, and just the thought of one of my dearest and oldest friends very nearly was no longer here. And while those are not easy subjects to touch, I think they're very important because there are a lot of people out there right now in the same situation that he was in October of 2022. And what's even more important is what he did in the time between October 2022 and October 2023. Because almost a year to the day after he took action to try to end his own life, he crossed the finish line of his first ever full marathon. And again, that is one of those memories that will never leave my mind. And it's one of those memories that I will always look back on as one of my most cherished memories. One of the memories I'm most thankful for is watching him cross that finish line and seeing that air of confidence and that air of happiness and thankfulness in his eyes, and knowing that he had built a new version of himself and he had done something truly impossible. Mm-hmm. And I think it's the first time I'd ever really seen that message that I had kind of built up and internalized, that I had really seen that take full, profound effect in somebody else's life. And it was in that moment that I realized that this is what my whole life will be dedicated toward, is helping as many people as humanly possible achieve this. And so that was certainly one of the most impactful memories I have of this show and of these last 2 years and everything in between. And I'm trying to think, it was August of that year you got your second diagnosis, correct, in 2023?
No, August and September of 23 is where I relapsed the second time.
Yeah, because you had that was your first relapse, technically, right? Like you had.
No, this was after Cleveland. This was the second relapse. Yeah, this was where I started I started my treatment in Cleveland for possibly a BMT. And then I headed down to Houston January
for the CAR T.
For the CAR T.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you were in the process of, you had come on as part of Impossible Performance when
May-
we started this platform.
May of 2023 is when you approached me.
Yeah. And so this was a message that you were building up and internalizing in your own fight as well.
Yeah, it was. I would have to say at the beginning, I was only starting to get a grasp of what it was going to be and what it was going to become and how it was going to impact me and why I needed to feel that impact, I would say. With JD, to go back on JD's story though, I do want to say that really is, because 2023, I'm really starting to get to know everybody, here, JD, and then a few others that we had met at Monsters, kind of getting, to be quote unquote a part of the family that we have now. That episode struck me very deeply because I don't think I really knew until shortly before the episode itself that he had attempted it.
I think you're right. I think it was maybe just a week, if that.
Yeah, because and so for me at least, it was very short before the recording, and that's why I think it really, like, for the actual the recording itself, we didn't have video at that point, and I'm somewhat thankful because I remember being an absolute mess that day, just hearing it from his mouth and talking through what had happened and where he was. And some of that emotional response was due to the fact that I've talked about this in some of my solo recordings, is the sort of first technical relapse, May of 2022, where I was first upgraded for the brentuximab AVD for Cleveland. June to September, late August, beginning of September of 2022, that 8 doses of brentuximab AVD was I would say the darkest times that I've ever experienced, because I had to move back home. I was taken away from the pathway that we had laid out to deal with the cancer at Belpre, and I was alone, really. My partner was 4,200 miles away, and I couldn't stay in the position that I was in, and I felt cheated because I wasn't truly. Well, this was 2022, so Impossible Performance for me wasn't even a thing yet. Mm-hmm. I was still kind of your first client with Impossible Health Coach, and so like I was still part of the family for sure, but like it was growing, and some of the points that he had discussed on that episode were hitting so close to home for me, because the closest that I have ever come to, I wasn't going through suicidal. What is that called?
Ideation.
I about said idolation. Ideation was not specifically that, but certainly the mindset and the thought of being absolutely okay with not waking up the next day because of those moments on the BAVD. That his episode really hit home for me, because I definitely, because of a different external force, but the internal response to an external force, where I was completely out of control of my emotions in 2022. I was not anywhere close to the person that I am now. And so there were a few weeks in a row, especially, of course, near the tail end of that portion of those 4 months, where I was I was ready for everything to be done. And when I mean everything, when I say everything, I mean everything. So JD's episode really, really hit me hard. And I'm thankful that we, obviously did that. I'm very thankful that he came out and had the confidence, and it takes a bit of panache to come out with that and to admit that to the world. But I'm so proud that he did, not only as, his best mate, but like also because I have felt that being stuck in the tar pit with seemingly zero hope for a way out. So that hit me hard.
Yeah. And at the time, it was by far our most widely spread, widely impactful episode.
Yep.
And for weeks and months after, I was having people come up to me talking about that episode, and I know he was as well, having people approach him with just like reverence and respect and amazement at what he was able to do. But I think his journey signifies an important part of the message, and one he would, I believe, agree with if he were asked, in that it's not that over the course of that year he flipped the switch and all of his problems went away, and now he's a totally changed person that doesn't deal with those struggles anymore. Like, he still battles on, I believe, almost a daily basis with a lot of the challenges that he faced even back in October 2022. But what he has done, and what is the key piece of our message, is he's built that impossible version of himself. He's built a man that is equipped to take on those challenges and to battle those challenges every single day. And I don't think we ever get to a point where our greatest challenges fully go away. I think we just get stronger and more well-equipped and better at battling them and dealing with them. And so when he has those challenges today, I believe he's more easily able to fight through them and to work through them and to take them on. And, he's got good days and bad days just like everybody else. But I know that there was a profound person that he built in running those miles that whole year, in training for the marathon, but then in also running the marathon itself. And then he went back the next year in 2024 and ran it and shaved, almost 2 hours off of his time or something.
Yeah.
Substantial amount of time off. And that was even cooler to see. But, that was that marathon that year, and everything that went into that was one of the most impactful experiences of my life, and it still drives me today in knowing what can be done with dedicated passion and unruly faith in your own potential again.
Yep.
And we kind of springboarded off of that into really creating and developing Impossible Performance, and what we're doing with the podcast and our platform and everything, and giving more shape and structure to everything we're doing. And just 6 weeks after that, I remember the day after I actually failed to complete that marathon, the day after I signed up for the December meet at Monsters, because I needed something new to immediately chase, and a new goal and a new platform to put this energy in and to live out this message on.
Yeah.
And so I went into that meet, and that was the first meet where I think one Miss Natalie Zambori came onto the stage. I think I had met her. I can't remember if I met her in August briefly or if I met her for the first time in December. She could probably tell us for sure. But I know that the December meet was where we really got to see her power on display.
Yeah.
And I think she opened up a whole new world for both of us.
No, absolutely.
Of what dedicated performance and discipline and work can truly be. And then she was another one where when she came on the podcast, just an unbelievable episode. She was one of our first full-length video podcasts, and it would have been somewhere around episode 42, 43, somewhere in there. Are you able to pull that one up real quick?
Absolutely.
Well, and we'll link all these in the show notes so you guys got them, but somewhere around there, and it was another like 3.5, 4 hour recording of her discussing her journey with battling through cancer with her son, Leo, and then also her journey into losing weight and discovering powerlifting and building an entirely new version of herself.
34.
34. Wow, I was way off on
March
that one.
26th, 2024.
I was way off on that one.
Oh, as well.
So, yeah, go back and listen to episode number 34 with Natalie Zambori. And it was during that episode that our connection and our friendship with her and her family really exploded and took off. And it would have been about a month after that we went up to Pittsburgh to run the Pittsburgh Marathon Relay with a few of our friends, as well as her and Leo bringing up the final leg of the race. And again, it was one of those, which we are known for doing this, one of those like last minute, like, what do you think of going out and run the final leg of a marathon? I think at that point, I don't know if Leo had even ever run 4 miles at one point before, but that was another one of those memories that for me is just like one of the most impactful memories, because Pittsburgh was the city where he and Natalie had battled cancer.
Yep.
And 5 years later, he's coming back to that same city to run the final leg of a marathon with our team, something he probably never thought he would do. And it gets even crazier than that, because the start of their leg where they were dropped off was at the exact hotel where Leo and Natalie used to stay for treatments. And so it added even more power to that day for them. And then when they took off to do that final leg, Leo just like bolted and ran. And I think he ran 4 miles in like 33 minutes or something.
Something crazy.
Which is crazy he was only 13 at the time. And I just remember seeing that look in his eyes after he crossed that finish line. He's coming up through the corral. It was just that light and that fire of like, what can I do? Mm-hmm. You know? And again, it's not that he's like, all of a sudden, all of his problems have gone away for the rest of his life and he'll never have a day of struggle again. It's not that at all. It's just that his eyes were opened to the idea of his own true potential. And I think that's one of the greatest gifts you could ever help somebody else to realize in themselves.
Yep.
Is that you have potential far beyond anything you would allow yourself to dream. And so that was another one of those moments that just truly shook me to my core. And again, since then, you know, Natalie and her whole family has become some of our greatest and most cherished friends, people who we're immensely, immensely thankful to share in this journey with. And so that was another really profound and impactful memory for me. And I think you certainly weren't in Houston still at that point, but I don't think you were at that Pittsburgh Marathon, were you?
I was not. No.
Okay, I didn't think so.
No, I didn't get to experience that, but I was there for Natalie's recording, and I know, personally, I found a lot of help with that in trying to understand the perspective of the caretaker, and specifically with my mother being my caretaker for every treatment day. You know, she was there, except for Houston. But I mean, I would, you know, a different case. But for that, hearing the caretaker side, specifically mother being the caretaker, was really, really, really helpful for me, in giving me a lot of perspective of what they would go through in those times. And like you said, they've all become very, very close to us, and I'm very, very thankful that they're in our lives, because it really is an incredible people. They are incredible people. So
yeah, absolutely. And from there we go through. Let's see, that was April of 2024. the end of April was when that race was. And I know we had the April meet at the beginning of that month, which I think was the first time I squatted over 4. I was in wraps for that meet, though, because I was playing around with wraps and some heavy weight for the first time and having a lot of fun with that. And then we did the marathon a few weeks later, the Pittsburgh Marathon. And then I think we came out of that, and Lily was born June 1st, which took up a lot of my time and energy and focus in June. But again, some of the start of some of the greatest moments and memories in my life. And we go from there into the August 2024 meet, which for me is where my favorite lift that I've ever had the opportunity to do was. And what's funny about it is not even close to the heaviest lift I've ever done, but it was 425 pounds raw in competition. And coming into it, I was just hoping to hit 400. And it was one of those where I think I opened around like 363, because I always like to open light. I smoked that, and I went up and did. I got really ambitious with my second attempt, went up to 407. And I think I even forgot to put my knee wrap up for that. Or my knee sleeve up for that.
Yeah.
Which is something I forget to do more than I should. Because I cannot feel my right leg. And especially that sleeve that goes up over my prosthetic and my liner. I can't always feel whether it's up or not until I go into the squat, and then I realize very quickly whether or not
slides
it's there.
down.
And then I'm like, well, I'm committed at this point. We're going to do it regardless. And I actually missed the 407. I can't remember exactly why. It might have been a depth call, might have been a shakiness issue. I don't remember. I missed the 407, and yet still I knew that I could do more. And so I call out 425, which was another substantial.
You stood up with the 407, so it was like, it's there.
Yeah, and so it was something that, like, I was like, I know I can do this. And so I call the 425, and I go through a lot of my mental routine that I had developed to put myself in a physiological state of exhibiting power beyond what my capability should be. And I come out and do the 425, and I sink the 425, and I'm coming up with that weight. And I had never, and I still don't know if I've ever put myself in a state like I did for that lift. I remember doing that lift, and my nose actually busted open halfway through the end of it, which ended up just icing on the cake. But beyond even that, it was one of the greatest times I remember walking away from that of like, I think that's where our like idea of limitations don't exist was born. Because I remember walking away from that of like, there is so much infinitely more there. Because if I had been honest with you, I don't think that I would have said I truly believed I could hit that 425. But again, it was one of those things for me where I'd rather fail chasing something impossible than do something I know I can do. And I just remember completing that lift, the arms coming in, setting the weight down on it, and it's like I am shaking, and I have to like immediately sprint into Clayton's office because I am shaking. I'm having like a full-on emotional meltdown in there. And I'm shaking and I'm hyperventilating, and it's like the state I had put my body in was something beyond anything I'd ever experienced, anything that should have been possible for me. I've got like tears streaming down my face, and I walked away from that moment and truly realized like there is so much more for me out there in this movement and in this sport, and not beyond even that, just in my passion for life and in our mission and vision with the business. So I think it was that moment there where I really started dedicating myself more to this pursuit of training and developing the mind. And I think that's really where we kind of found our niche, because you and I and so many of our guests and our listeners, we're not always the people that have tons of genetic potential and talent. We're not, physically speaking, the star athletes of the show.
I'll never be an NBA All-Star.
Yeah.
It's just not going to happen.
But you have a better mustache than any of them.
Than most, yeah.
Then I can't. I don't think there's anybody on the court that
I don't know.
could rival you.
That's a
maybe
challenge
there's
now.
some people out there. You guys let us know if you know of anybody. But I think that's where we really found our niche and our specific pursuit and passion. It's because the mental, or the mindset and the mental willpower and strength we've been able to build is almost a cheat code for our physical performance. It's a massive enhancement on that. And I think it's something that's far too readily overlooked in pretty much all of sports performance today. Like, people talk about having discipline to go out and train, and all of these things you need to build, but nobody talks about actively building and strengthening your mind into a tool you incorporate into your physical performance. But it is absolutely something that we have access to. Mm-hmm. I've felt it many times. I know you've felt it many times. And I think it's really our personal greatest strength and our greatest asset in all of the challenges we've faced, whether chosen or otherwise. Because if you can put yourself in a state, use your mind to put yourself in a state physically that you move beyond physical limitations you would have had otherwise, then you step into a whole new realm of performance for yourself. That was the August 2024 meet is the first time I really, really felt like I experienced that. And I know at that point, was that where you had your final relapse? Was right around that time?
The most recent relapse.
Yeah.
Yep. I remember I was working in Boulder, Colorado, and I called you panicking on a Sunday evening because I felt the lymph node again above my right clavicle. And I was sitting in the hotel room. I was in the Residence Inn in Superior, Colorado. And I stretched my neck out because I'm like, oh, my neck is kind of sore, and I don't know why. And I just went to feel it, and it was just there, like a rock. And I remember my heart sank, my blood pressure spiked, and I immediately was just like, Matt, what do I... And yeah, Monday I immediately called my oncologist, and it was that was Monday I called, and Tuesday I left back for Ohio, and PET scan or blood work, PET scan, it's back. SUV is even higher, the highest that it's ever been, 15 and 17 respectively, and it had also moved. So typically I was right and left supraclavicular, and this time, in the most recent time here, was right supraclavicular and right axillary, so right armpit. Were my affected areas, and that's where it was ultimately decided that the bone marrow transplant was going to be the next route, the thing that we tried to avoid with the August 23 relapse and going down to Houston. And so, yeah, it was late August. It would have been probably the week after the meet, or 2 weeks after the meet, is when I started my pre-BMT treatment phase. So that's where I would have started with the
It was the Pembro GVD.
Pembro GVD, yeah. So pembrolizumab, and then gemcitabine, vinorelbine, and liposomal doxorubicin, and which honestly, to a point, felt worse than the actual bone marrow transplant chemo.
Really?
Yeah,
What?
yeah. The Pembro GVD really, really messed me up.
Yeah.
Especially because it was 2 months of treatment, but it was 6 weeks of treatment, not 2 months, 6 weeks. And I had 4 doses of GVD in those. And then we also found out that I had an anaphylactic reaction to the liposomal doxorubicin. And in that moment, well, after the reaction, you hit the red button. He hit the red button, and there were 10 people in that room immediately. And Allison, my oncologist, she walked in, and you want to talk about my switch being flipped.
Yeah.
I would say that would be a big point of it. You already know what I'm talking about. She looked at me and she said, "Austin, you already know what I'm about to say, but we have to get this doxorubicin in you. We have to deliver this. We can't just exit out. We can't 86 it." And I'm like, "Are you sure we can't?" And she's like, "No, you have to take it, and we're gonna." It was a 1 hour delivery dosage, and we're gonna have to take it up to 2 hour delivery dosage. Keep you on a bunch of allergy medicine, Benadryl.
Yeah.
Just to get it through you, but you have to take this. And I remember vividly. I looked at you, and then I looked out the window, and that felt like forever. That I had to face what it felt like death. Okay, I'm just gonna say it. I literally was thinking like, okay, great. If I go through this again and I have even more of an anaphylactic shock, maybe then she can finally get off my back. But I was under the assumption that I'm facing death here, and I can either bow down to it or stand up, stay firm, stay the course, and put on my absolute best to win this fight. And there was a lot that I said to myself that I'm not going to repeat here. In that moment of staring out the window, but I remember looking back and saying, "Okay, let's keep going."
Yeah.
So,
and what I think is most important about that moment and that unbelievably impossible challenge to face, because like you had an anaphylactic reaction, like your throat was closing up. And what's crazy about those rooms, I know I've said this a million times, those rooms are completely closed off.
yeah.
Like nobody would have known you were having that reaction until somebody would have just randomly walked in, hopefully at some point. But fortunately, I'm just so thankful that I've had the opportunity to work in oncology for long enough that I knew what was happening immediately. And I think you had like the hot flashes and the flushing.
Hot flashes. It's
And
like
then-
it's like 1,000 needles hitting your
Yeah.
chest, and your throat is on fire.
Yeah.
Utterly on fire.
And then you said, wheezing, "I can't breathe." And that's when I was like, yep, we're going.
Yeah.
So I go up and flip the code blue button because I'm not wasting time going out and yelling, "Hey, we need help down here." I'm not wasting time with the call button.
No.
Like, we're getting immediate action. And, Cleveland Clinic, to their credit, the nurses performed exactly as they should in that scenario. And everybody got where they needed to be. But you still just had gone through a near-death experience, and then not an hour later, your oncologist is looking in the eyes and saying, that stuff that you're deathly allergic to, I need you to do that again. And then I need you to do it 4 times after this.
Yep.
Over the next 6 weeks. And so that's the situation you're in. But what I think's most important about it is the man you were a year prior, and especially 2 years prior,
I would have folded under the pressure.
would not have continued with that.
Absolutely not. No. No. No.
And so it's a perfect example of the strength you've built over the last several years, and the man you've been able to create that otherwise could not and should not have existed.
Yeah.
And similarly to me doing that squat and knowing the power that the mind can unleash for the body, you were able to access that same power and that same potential through your mind, even though every fiber of your being was revolting against it.
Yeah.
You used the strength of your mind you had built up to lock in and step forward on a treacherous path you in no way wanted to partake in.
Yeah. Yeah, that moment. The moment was pivotal. And yeah, you're right. The individual I was back before even the diagnosis would not have. I would have folded. Made some other choices. So
yeah,
but I'm glad that I stuck with it, because at the moment it seems to have worked.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it was that moment of mental strength and fortitude and belief in yourself that has led to where you are now, which we will get to here shortly, and is a very profound journey even from then, which it's wild to think about, but really that was only about 8 or 9 months ago,
It's like a lifetime ago.
I know. It's crazy how that moves. But moving, from that time, it was during that time we had Jen on the podcast, Clayton's wife. And again, she was another one of those episodes that I don't think either of us were fully prepared for what we were about to enter into. But you talk about a person that has built an impossible mind in the face of everything she's battled through. You guys can go back and listen to that episode. Oh, I'm trying to guess a number here.
I gotcha.
I'm gonna guess 52. No, that would be wrong. Probably somewhere in the 60s, right?
Oh. We didn't put a number beside it. Yeah. 76.
Oh, I was wrong. 76. Go back and listen to Jen's episode. And she covers mostly her process of running the marathon that year and a lot of the other challenges she faced in training and building toward that marathon.
And that was incredible to experience.
Yeah. That was the greatest memory I have of the Columbus Marathon 2024. One of my fondest memories from that race was getting to run a significant portion of it with Pete, actually, and some of the conversations and discussions we had in that time.
And staying on course.
Yeah. That's a story for another time. At least we didn't cut our race short. We only extended it by about a mile through some not good areas to be in, but that's why I had Pete there with me.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
to guard me. Anyway, we ended up catching up with Jen about mile, it was close to the end. I want to say it was like 12 and a half even of that race. And she had just been so consistent through that whole race. It was powering through. And then at the end, she, being a nurse practitioner, she stops to revive and take care of a homeless man who was unconscious on the sidewalk there. Even though she's in an ungodly amount of pain and ready to quit and give up, she stops to take care of that man and then gets right back to her race. And we catch up with her, and we're all walking, powering through the end of that race at this point. And we get to that like last 10th of a mile, and we're going uphill at this point. We can just see the finish line in the future. And I remember getting this feeling and looking up at her and thinking, like, how cool will it be if she has the memory of running across that finish line? And so I look at I never know how people are going to react when I say these things to them. I'm very fortunate that I've not been like slapped in the face more times than I have. But I look up at her, I'm like, what would it be like if you ran across the finish line? And she didn't have like, she gave me this look of like, oh my gosh, I hate you so much right now. But even though she had that look, she just immediately like started picking up the pace, and that faster walk turned into a run, and she ended up running across that finish line. And what was just an exclamation point on a monumental year of training and growth and development. And I just, again, it was one of those moments that just filled my heart with so much gratitude and so much joy for the opportunities we're honored to witness with everything we do. And so that was a monumental experience from Columbus Marathon 2024. And we came out of that into the December meet for me and the bone marrow transplant for you, which coincidentally were in pretty much the same week. Like the week that you were getting all that chemo was the week that I was coming into that meet.
Yeah, December 7th was the meet, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And then December 9th was... the 7th I was receiving my last day of chemo that morning. And then December 9th was my stem cell transplant.
Mm-hmm. And then I was fortunate enough to get to spend several days with you across that next week as you're battling through that.
You took me shopping.
Yeah, I kind of forgot about that day.
It was nice to get out of the house for a little bit. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah. And the December meet was incredible, and it was a great experience, one I'm very thankful for. But you know what's interesting is that meet doesn't like quite sit in my heart and my soul as much as like the August meet did. And I think a big part of it is because, like, honestly, I was just in... I think my mind and my heart were so heavily focused on you and like what you were going through. And honestly, that like what I remember most about that week is I'd kind of forgotten about the shopping trip day, honestly. Because later in that week it was a very different story. Because I remember I'd come up Monday, Tuesday. I was home Wednesday to take care of Lily, and I was back Thursday, Friday. And the stark contrast of what you were battling through Monday and Tuesday versus Thursday and Friday was immense for me. And I remember leaving Tuesday thinking like, man, he's going to get through this. He's going to be okay. And I come back Thursday and I'm like, what happened? And really all that had happened is the chemo had fully kicked in and it was doing its job and doing exactly what it was supposed to. But you were in rough shape.
Wreaking havoc.
Yeah, those 2 days. And it just, it gave me, for the first time ever, really a great insight into what the caretakers go through, the people who aid those battling through impossible challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Because it is heart-wrenching. Absolutely heart-wrenching. And for me, in those situations, I've tried to not ever just be the person, like the fix-it person. Like, if you need help, I'll give you help. But, like, I know that there's nothing I can do. Like, I'm not going to be the person that's like, here's a granola bar, here's a water, here's all this stuff. Because there's nothing I'm going to do in the moment that's going to fix that for you.
Mm-hmm.
That is mental, spiritual, physical war you are waging with yourself at that moment, and with the toxic chemicals inside of you. And so all I can do is just be by your side and just give as much support as humanly possible.
It's presence.
Yeah.
That's really...
And there's a lot to be said for that, for presence.
It's paramount.
Yeah.
That is paramount.
Yeah. But I think as the caretaker, it's hard to not... You battle these feelings of just pure helplessness.
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing I can... Like, I can't make you feel better. Like, all we can do is just lean in and give in and provide that presence as much as humanly possible. That was a tough time. I had never experienced it from that perspective before. And so that really opened my eyes and my heart up to a lot of what the loved ones and the caretakers and everybody else who, the Natalie Zamboris of the world, what they go through. And my respect and reverence and passion for what they do grew so much more strongly during those times. But you made it through, and you got back. And
yeah.
What was it? Was it like Christmas Eve or something? We got to see you again. You came back.
Yeah. So I popped up. December 23rd was the removal of my 3-headed monster catheter, which I was awake for, by the way.
Yeah.
They just lidocaine the area, and they're like, "All right, we're gonna pull on 3." I was like, "All right." Are you gonna start? He goes 1, and they're like, "No, it's already out." And I'm like, "Oh, thanks."
That worked.
They're like, "It's right here. You want to see it?"
Kind
I'm
of like that. What was that game people used to play with the pliers and the little man who's all cut open? You gotta get the little. God, we're really aging ourselves with that. We should probably stop.
yeah, because the drawing of the character had the little red nose, and it would flash
and
when you touched it.
I hated that game.
Oh my. Yeah, I remember playing Risk when I was growing up. If you remember that.
No, I don't think I knew that one.
Risk was it was like half board, half figure, like battle game.
Yeah.
To where like Risk was about like forming and strategies, and like it was kind of like the Revolutionary War type fighting style where you just had like wave after wave of just humans mowing each other down with muskets. It was kind of that kind of idea. Anyways, cancer treatment. So yeah, it was December 23rd I had that removed. December 24th I wanted to see everybody for the holidays. So I came down here, but then I went back up to Dunkirk to, just because I was immuno-freaking compromised, and I wanted to spend a little bit of time. I was thinking the entire month spending it up in Dunkirk, but then I was starting to feel pretty okay the second week of January, and I that's when I if I'm remembering correctly, I kind of, all of that's a bit a jaded memory for me at the moment. Eventually, like mid-January, I remember moving back down here. But yeah, the time in Cleveland where the chemo hit me, not to get long-winded, but those were days I wasn't emotionally, I was so stable to where I wasn't like sitting here going, oh, if I, like I felt in 2022, like, oh, if I don't wake up tomorrow, I'll be fine with it. I wanted to wake up tomorrow, but I wanted to wake up not necessarily like I wanted to wake up like next month.
Yeah.
Because I knew that what I was going through was not going to be solved by tomorrow. Yeah. I knew that the side effects were not going to wear off by tomorrow. There were a lot of tomorrows that were needing to come before I was going to feel even remotely close to feeling human again.
Yeah.
And so, especially those days that when you came back, I could feel it impacting you.
Yeah.
And then especially when you had to come back down, and then my mother returned, what was it, Friday night or Saturday morning. That's where I would say that week was just 0 to 100 of it felt like I was kicked and punched and thrown around by a raging bull, and then somebody just happened to transport me to the bed in the Verbo, and then that was my existence for 3 weeks, 2.5 weeks. It was just me in a bed.
Yeah, I remember very much feeling like you were in that kind of 100-mile mentality where like people get with a 100-mile endurance race, and you're just like, there is no light at the end of the tunnel. Like you were on mile 70 with 30 miles to go, where there's no light at the end of the tunnel yet. You've got an entire marathon plus left to do, and you have given 100% of your effort. Like everything is gone.
And it never seemed like enough. Like no matter what I ate, what I drank, what I told myself, it would only go so far. Yeah.
And you were doing exactly what people in that situation have to do, and it's just literally make it through every moment. The next 5 seconds, the next 10 seconds, the next hour.
And that's what made it just feel awful, was exactly that. It was, I'd look down at my phone and I only went 5 minutes into the future, and I'm like, that just felt like a month right there of just constant, oh, maybe I'll feel better. Oh, I want to feel better. I really want to feel better. I don't feel better. 2 minutes has passed.
Just suffering.
Yeah.
And that's where, like, I think a lot of people, they think, when they get on chemo, like, oh, I'm going to get all this stuff done. I'm going to do all this writing. I'm going to do this writing. I remember myself, I was like, I'm going to play so much guitar.
Yeah, I fell for that too.
Yeah, you get none of that.
None of that.
Because you don't have the physical capacity, the mental capacity, the emotional capacity. So much of it is just allowing time to pass.
Yeah. You are so focused on the clock. And even when you tried to, because when I started to come on the up a little bit, about a week before Christmas, I was like, I'll play some video games to kind of pass the time. I was trying to do that before, but it wasn't really doing anything. And I was playing Assassin's Creed, so it was kind of like, side quest after side quest after side quest of just trying to do these like monotonous things and like trying to pass the time. And even that was just like so, it was just the stomach pain. My stomach and it gets so bound up and so disgusted with what has occurred, to where like that's what ruins my mood, and that's what puts me in a fetal position. Like I was sore, I had body aches, yada yada yada, but my stomach was just the worst part, and I could not. That was what I was battling with mentally the most, was just my stomach feels awful, and I'm so sensitive in that area when it comes to chemo treatment.
Yeah, you've always been somebody who's particularly sensitive to the
and that's why it was so
chemo-induced
difficult
nausea.
to difficult to eat, difficult to drink. You know, I mean, I kept the stuff up somewhat, but yeah, that's what was most difficult. I would say, like, the one thing I had to focus on the most was like fighting this painful stomach, and I hate that because I love eating. I love eating and drinking whatever I can. I couldn't drink coffee. I couldn't drink tea. It was just water and bland food, but then also very delicious food, which I devoured kind of like my last week there. And I think that's where I gained all the weight, honestly, because I left the bone marrow transplant at 212.
Okay.
212 pounds. And so I actually I was like 207, 208 going into it. So I actually gained a few pounds.
Yeah. Well, and they're pumping your body with so many like heavy duty steroids like dexamethasone.
Yeah.
That you're going to put on a ton of like water weight and inflammation and all kinds of stuff as well.
But Natalie's food.
Oh yeah.
Saved my
that.
taste buds.
Yeah.
Because the little taste buds that I had in those moments, as soon as I could start palating more than, because I wasn't gonna heat up her food and then have 2 bites of it and go, well, I can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
Like I wanted to eat it, and so when I could start finally putting down, like I could finally put down some food, I went after it.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Which is probably what your body needed at the time to rebuild. And then coming out of that, I don't know exactly when it started for both of us, but it was sometime in like mid-January. It was like you and I kind of got on this like aligned path of this is what we do now. Mm-hmm. We are going to approach this mission and vision absolutely from every perspective, mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally. And we're going to bring a new level of performance to our own daily lives, into the message and the mindset we bring to this show and this platform. And that for me has been one of the coolest journeys I've ever been on personally, because it's like these last, now almost 4 or 5 months have just been like total lock-in, total driven toward what we're building. And I know you especially have been on that journey. And I think I sent you a text last week, but it's just been an unbelievable honor for me to witness your development, your growth, and your change, especially since returning from Scotland, which I definitely want to get your thoughts on that time period as well, and what really was awakened within you. And now it's just, we were talking at dinner last night, and it's like we were in our own little world of just like what we've gained access to. I felt bad a little bit. Once the food came, I was like, whoa, we just checked out from that conversation for a little bit.
Yeah, nothing else existed in that.
To be fair, we hadn't seen each other for like a month.
Yeah, so. Exactly, 5 weeks.
Yeah.
So it needed to happen. March, Scotland. 2 big things, and I'll expand on the second portion. But the first portion was getting to share that experience of traveling to us Americans is, somewhat a different world. Not a completely different world, but a somewhat different world. Was I got to take my nephew with me for the first 2 weeks. That was I still struggle. I struggle to come up as I am now with describing how awesome it felt to share that with him, to offer, again, not to get long-winded, but travel for me has done so much for my thankfulness, my gratefulness, my humility, and my humanity over the past. I've been traveling internationally since 2011. So it began with, I guess since 2014. 2011 and 12, I traveled to Alaska each summer in between school, or the school year, and then once we got to university, it just exploded, and seeing what it's done for me, I needed to pass that down to somebody, and really, I haven't had a partner to experience the past few times that I've gone. And I just wanted to share it with somebody, and I'm so thankful to have shared it with him, and to see him in his reaction to what we were experiencing in that trip, but mostly when we got back, or when he left, and I stayed, and he, I was just messaging him and stuff like that. He was so excited to share it with everyone, and that made me feel super incredible. The second part was, I had some time then to just really then listen to the silence that had presented itself in my head over the past kind of 4 months.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked myself, okay, what would I do if this were my life? How would I structure my day? What would I go and do? What would I work on? And I found this pocket of being able to shift up another gear. Not overdrive, we're not there yet, but into another gear to where I could build up even more speed and with some more steam. And I wrote down what it was going to be like and what was required and what was necessary for me to commit to a particular thing and what that would look like for me. And I don't know I'm still trying to work out the process of how the kind of how the teeth of the gears were able to align, but things just started coming together. For 6 days in a row, I went to a coffee shop, the Black Sheep Coffee Company, I believe is what it's called. It's a chain based out of Norway, but they have there's a little in St. James Quarter. It's a kind of an open shopping mall, multiple levels, and they have a store there, and it's in a really nice area. It's in the financial district, like the Gucci and Louis Vuitton is just across the walkway, and I would go there every morning, get a flat white with 2 doses of lion's mane, and I would just start writing. And in those 6 days, I put probably 80 hours in that coffee shop writing.
Wow.
Writing. Like, writing. I mean, it just mountains of caffeine and lion's mane was consumed in those moments. And I said to myself, because then the last few days after that of my trip, I spent traveling and searching for my ancestral ties to the land, which in itself I can share at a different time. But when I was done doing that, I was like, I would absolutely love for that to be what I do in a day. Not necessarily a 12-hour shift of it, but like if I had the opportunity to just go into a coffee shop and write, that would make me very, very happy. So, and be writing for a purpose too, to help people. I mean, to help people is our goal. And I think that I'm just simply evolving my perspective and my approach towards how I can do that within the realm of attaching a passion to it, because I had created and was working on the general sense of passion in serving others within the realm of Impossible Performance when we began it. But my passions of writing and music, which were just innate and have been in me forever, I haven't been able to find an outlet for them. We were writing for podcasts, but like it wasn't clicking.
Yeah.
It wasn't there. It wasn't like it wasn't a free flow of an outlet for that passion. And so when I felt that presence with the pen in my hand, and then just typing that stuff in and just reliving moments, I remember I wrote an essay on Paris and performing at the I forgot how you say church in French, but
Église. That's cathedral specifically, I think.
And it probably is that.
Yeah.
So it would be the Cathedral of La Madeleine.
Oh yeah.
And we performed there for our full performance in Paris in 2018 with the University Singers Choir. And it was raining, and there was lightning, and there were 3 skylights in the top of the cathedral while we were singing. And we were singing a particular piece called When David Heard by Eric Whitacre. And it's this powerful scream of agony and questioning and questioning himself, questioning of his devotion to God. And I'm shaking now just thinking about it, and just that visceral reaction that I was having in that moment. I was just like, this is what I need. This is what I need to do. This is what I want to live for, and this is what I want to chase. This is what I want to pursue for the rest. I know.
Inside joke.
For the rest of my life. This is my life needs to be devoted to this. And not that it wasn't before, but I think you understand what I'm saying.
It's that moment of realization.
It was.
Yeah. It's that moment of when I got to stand by JD and watch him cross the finish line.
Full circle.
Yeah.
It came full circle. What I needed to come around and really attach to it to be a bit more complete after being stripped apart and flayed over the past 3 years. I found Austin. Yeah. And I found him in a position that is the Austin I needed in my darkest moments. And I wish the Austin back then would have been able to see me now, to know that to know that this was even possible. Yeah. And, it's so much fun.
Yeah. It really is. And it's that right there. It's that level of emotion and passion and purpose that this message will build in your life should you choose to adopt it. That is why we are so immensely driven by our mission and our vision for the world, which we have had clearly stated since episode 1 of this podcast. Mm-hmm. You know, it's funny, we talk about all of the changes and the growth and the back and forth and the ups and downs we've made. One thing that has not changed, even remotely, is the mission and vision we have for what we do. And I would imagine that will remain constant throughout the entire course of this venture in our lives. And to literally and figuratively open the next chapter of this journey for us, I'll let Austin close with some words he has put together that will be the introduction to our newest project, our newest phase, and our newest dedicated discipline for the passion we pursue every single day. And we hope that this will be the greatest resource that we have ever been able to bring this platform and our listeners and everybody who shares in the impossible mind.
Matthew and I, here at Impossible Performance, want to offer you a more in-depth look into the world of pursuing the impossible mind. Whatever that impossible is for you, we are all aware as to how heavy this feeling weighs on you. For wanting to better yourself and to move beyond your highest potential. We may not understand the gravity of your situation, but to the degree of possessing the desire to assist you, we offer guidance for your journey to doing the impossible. The journey you shall take head on will have its trials and tribulations. You will have moments of severe doubt in your ability, your determination, your supposed lack of sacrifice, and you may start to ponder giving up. There will be no potential reached in this universe without the experience of pain, torment, and the feeling of the fire flaying the layers of your old self. Let us help you attain those goals through grit and personal commitment, and allow you to truly feel what it means to be impossible.
I love it, brother. Would you like to tell everybody what that's from?
That is from the prologue of The Impossible Mindset. We are going to be delivering you somewhat of an introit to a larger work of The Impossible Mindset, a novel, a guide a teaching, a sharing of experiences, and somewhat like this episode, which I love the word that we had here, was a reflection of those experiences, and really turning the mirror on ourselves and looking a bit more inward. And the Impossible Mindset is going to hopefully, and with all of our power and being, will be a determining factor in you being able to find that pocket, to be able to swim within that ether of what it is to finding yourself in that, facing the impossible. And in order to be impossible, you must do the impossible. It is the exact tangible evidence from what we have learned, and from building and laying down the foundation for what it means to continue to learn and to continue to analyze and continue to apply, and ultimately continue to evolve what it is that is our highest potential. So the Impossible Mindset is not only going to be, again, a teaching, guidance, but it's ultimately to assist you in that exploration of self, something that Matt and I have done to remarkably wild success, and to be able to put something into your hands digitally or paperback. I know Matt and I differ very much in how we absorb books nowadays, and so I'm very excited to have something in my hands that we've produced, to put it into yours. I'm ecstatic, and again, I'm shaking here just thinking about what we have achieved through this, what we have learned through this process, and we're in the heart. We're in the hearth right now of the formation of this seemingly impossible task to bring you everything that we can.
Yeah. So the Impossible Mindset first will come out as an ebook, which has actually entirely been written by Austin, and it's meant to be somewhat of a taste of what the larger full-length book will be.
Yep.
Kind of as an introduction to people who may be new to our message, or people who have been a part of this message for a long time, of this new format. Apologize. So it will be largely an ebook form at first. Yep. And I'm in the process now of writing a foreword for this book, but Austin has been tirelessly writing, and we've had several editing meetings of going through everything and making sure every minute detail is absolutely perfect for you guys. And what will come from that is a full-length book that Austin has, as he's described it, it will be somewhat of a novel, somewhat of an instruction manual, somewhat of a guide of how do you approach the impossible challenges of life. How do you face the impossible? How do you build an impossible version of yourself that is capable of overcoming those challenges that will inevitably lead to you doing the impossible? And that I am immensely excited for. And yes, it will be in hardback copy. We will get it printed. We will have it available for you guys.
So excited.
And we will put together an audiobook for you. And
Yeah, we can do that too. So
because I need my audiobook. But we've already got the equipment to record it, so why not?
Exactly.
And just like when we started this podcast, Austin and I have no idea how to actually write a book, how to publish, produce, edit a book, how to do any of that.
But we're gonna find out.
Yeah. But we know that we've entered into an impossible challenge before, and we know how we worked through that and overcame it, and we know that we will do it again. So we don't currently have any set established timelines, but I would expect the ebook later this summer, fall.
Yep.
And
Easily.
the full-length copy will take a good bit more time to fully nail down everything. And
Yep.
I know publishing processes can, be an adventure and a journey of their own. But we will keep you guys updated on the progress. We'll probably keep giving you little hints and snippets throughout here as well.
Absolutely.
But this is something that feels to both of us like a culmination of our life's work. And we are excited and honored to bring it to you guys. And just as this episode 100 of the Impossible Podcast,
Oh yeah.
as it has been somewhat of a novel in the telling of stories, somewhat of an instruction manual in the theories and the concepts we lay out, and as somewhat of a guide as we describe our own journeys throughout our time in constant pursuit of the impossible. The book will, in long form, reflect this very same layout. And it has been a true honor of mine to get to witness this growth and this development and this passion that Austin has found, and to see him fully come to realize himself, as he described it, over the past few months, but especially over the past several years since we have built this relationship and this partnership together. So we cannot wait to share this with you guys. We want to truly, from the bottom of our hearts, thank you for sharing in this mission and this vision with us, and helping us reach 100 episodes of this podcast.
Thank you.
And we can't wait to look back on this from episode 200.
Yep. That's going to be a lot.
Yeah.
A lot that I'm very excited for.
A lot of growth
So,
between now and then, for sure.
mhm.
So, brother, do you want to close this out here?
Because us here at Impossible Performance are striving to build a global culture of strength, fostering a spirit of growth and constant pursuit of the impossible. Take care, and as always, be impossible.